July 18th, 1945, 0342 hours. Patience Bay, eastern coast of Carafuto. The USS Barb cuts through black water like a knife through silk. No moon, no stars. Just a muffled growl of diesel engines and the taste of salt on every man's lips. Lieutenant Commander Eugene Flucky stands in the conning tower. Binoculars press against his eyes, scanning the Japanese shoreline 2,000 yards off the port bow. The air is thick, humid, electric with the kind of tension that makes your jaw ache from clenching. Below him, 84 men breathe in rhythm with the submarine. They don't speak. They don't need to. Every soul aboard Barb knows what they're doing here. This is the Empire Japan. Home waters. The throat of the beast. American submarines aren't supposed to be here. The Sea of Okhotsk and the waters off Carafuto, what the Russians call Sakhalin, are minefield patrol zones and killing grounds. Imperial Navy destroyers hunt these channels. Coastal defense guns watch every inlet. This isn't the open Pacific where you can dive deep and vanish. This is the enemy's backyard, and the enemy is everywhere. But Flucky isn't everywhere else. He's here, and he didn't come to hide. Barb is a Gatto-class fleet submarine, 311 feet of welded steel and calculated violence. She sunk more tonnage than most boats see in 3 war patrols. Her deck gun, a 5-inch 25 caliber cannon, has sent freighters and sampans to the bottom with brutal efficiency. Her torpedo tubes have punched holes in tankers, troop transports, and escort vessels from the Philippines to the Kuriles. But this patrol is different. Flucky's orders were simple: reconnaissance and opportunity targets in the Sea of Okhotsk. Find shipping. Sink it. Survive. But somewhere between latitude and audacity, Flucky decided that opportunity was a word with elastic boundaries. 3 days ago, Barb slipped to the enemy minefields using captured Japanese charts and sheer calculated guesswork. 1 degree off course, 1 miscalculation, and 84 men die in a pressure hull coffin at the bottom of a sea the U.S. Navy doesn't even have good maps for. They made it through. Since then, Barb has been hunting. Not merchant convoys. Not destroyers. Trains. Flucky studied the charts. He saw the coastal railway hugging the shoreline, carrying troops and supplies south toward a crumbling Japanese defensive perimeter. He saw vulnerability. He saw a target no submarine in history had ever engaged, and he saw a way to make the Japanese doubt their own eyes. Now, in the pre-dawn darkness, the railroad tracks gleam faintly in the distance. A thin line of steel threading along the coast, carved into the cliffs and wooden trestles. Flucky can see the silhouette of a small station. Storage sheds. Telegraph poles. No patrolboats. No satellites. Just silence. Range to shore. Flucky's voice is calm, almost conversational. 1,800 yards, Captain. Flucky nods. He lowers the binoculars. His executive officer, Lieutenant Robert McNitt, stands beside him, arms crossed, jaw set. McNitt has been with Flucky through 4 war patrols. He knows the captain's mind works in frequencies other men don't hear. We're going in, Flucky says. McNitt doesn't blink. Surface gun action? Surface gun action. There's a pause. Then McNitt grins. It's the kind of grin you wear when you're about to do something so insane that fear loops back around to exhilaration. Battle station surface. The order ripples through the boat. Men move like shadows. Hatches crack open. The deck gun crew scrambles topside, their boots barely making sound on wet steel. The loader, the pointer, the trainer, they know this drill. But not here. Never here. Barb rises higher in the water. Her silhouette sharpens against the dark horizon. And for a moment, the only sound is a lap of waves against her hull. Then Flucky raises his hand. Target the rail line. Como feeling? The first shot splits the night open like thunder. The 5-inch deck gun roars, and a tongue of flame erupts from Barb's bow. The shell screams across the water, arcing through darkness, and slams into the railway embankment with a concussive crack that echoes off the cliffs. Dirt and wooden ties explode into the air. Flucky watches through his binoculars, his expression carved from stone. Again, the gun crew moves like a machine. Brass casing ejected. New shell rammed home. Breech slammed shut. Boom! Another hit. This one tears through a storage shed near the tracks. With splinters. Something inside ignites, fuel, ammunition, supplies, and suddenly there's a secondary explosion that paints the shoreline orange. A just left 2 degrees. Hit the trestle. The pointer cranks the mechanism. The barrel shifts. Boom! Direct hit. The wooden railway bridge shutters. One support beam collapsing in a shower of timber and twisted rail. The track sags like a broken spine. Flucky counts the seconds in his head. How long before someone notices? How long before the coastal defense wakes up and starts shooting back? Below deck, the crew is silent. The torpedo room, the engine room, the radio shack. Every man listening to the rhythm of their own heartbeat and the percussion of the deck, gun above, they're surfaced. In Japanese home waters, shelling the enemy coast. This isn't submarine warfare. This is a declaration. Cease fire. Flucky orders. The gun falls silent. Smoke drifts from the barrel. The shore is a mess of flames and shattered infrastructure. The railway line, at least this section, is unusable. But Flucky isn't done. He turns to McNitt. Assemble the landing party. McNitt blinks. Once. Then his face hardens into understanding. You're serious. Dead serious. They'd planned this 2 days ago, hunched over charts in the wardroom while the boat ran submerged beneath a Japanese patrol. Flucky had sketched it out with a greased pencil, a commando raid. 8 men, explosives. Go ashore, blow the tracks inland where the deck gun can't reach, and get back before the entire Imperial Army descends on them. It was madness. It was also brilliant that no enemy would expect it. Submarines don't land troops. Submarines don't fight on land. The psychological impact alone would be worth the risk. American submariners walking onto Japanese soil, planning demolitions and vanishing like ghosts. McNitt had called it the craziest damn thing I've ever heard. Flucky had called it warfare. Now, in the pre-dawn darkness off Karafuto, it's about to become reality. 8 volunteers assemble on deck. They're young, all of them. Torpedo men, electricians, a motor machinist. None of them trained for ground combat. But every one of them raised their hand when Flucky asked. They carry satchel charges, fuses, and .45 caliber pistols. One man, Torpedo Man Second Class Billy Hatfield, clutches a Thompson submachine gun like it's a lifeline. Flucky addresses him quietly. No speeches. No theatrics. You'll row to shore in the raft. Follow the ravine up to the inland track section. Plant the charges on rails. Both sides staggered so the blast buckles the line. 30-minute fuses. Then get back to the beach. We'll be waiting. He pauses. If something goes wrong, we can't stay. You understand that? They nod. They understand. Good. God be with you. The raft is lowered over the side. It's a small rubber craft, black and nearly invisible against the water. The 8 men climb down, paddles in hand, explosives secured. Flucky watches them disappear into the darkness. The raft makes no sound, just a faint dip and pull of paddles cutting water. Minutes pass. The shoreline is still burning in places. The flames throw shifting shadows across the cliffs. Somewhere inland, a dog barks. Then silence again. Flucky keeps his binoculars trained on the beach. His jaw is tight. His hands are steady. But inside, the clock is ticking. Every second they stay on the surface is a second closer to detection. Every minute the landing party is ashore is a minute they might not come back. McNitt stands beside him, scanning the horizon for patrol boats. Think they'll make it? Flucky doesn't lower the binoculars. They'll make it. And if they don't, then we gave the Japanese one hell of a story to tell. The minutes stretch. 5, 10, 15. Then, from the darkness, a shape appears. The raft, paddles flashing. 8 silhouettes hunched low. They're coming back. Fussed, the raft hits the side of bar with a muffled thump. Hands reach down. The landing party scrambles up the hull, soaked and breathing hard. Hatfield is grinning like a maniac. The others are pale, adrenaline drunk, but intact. Charge is set. Flucky asks, Charge is set, Captain. Hatfield gasps. 30-minute fuses. Both rails. That line's gonna fold like an accordion. Any contact? Negative. Saw lights inland, maybe a patrol post, but nobody came close. Flucky nods once. Get below. Secure that raft. The men vanish down the hatch. The raft is hauled aboard and lashed down. The deck gun crew remains topside, eyes scanning the shoreline. Flucky checks his watch. 23 minutes until detonation. All ahead 1/3. Take us north along the coast. Barb's engines rumble to life. The submarine eases forward, hugging the shoreline like a prowling shark. Flucky keeps her on the surface. He wants to see this. He wants the Japanese to see this. The sky is beginning to lighten. Not sunrise yet, but the deep black is fading to indigo. Visibility is increasing. Risk is increasing. McNitt shifts uncomfortably. Captain, we should dive. We're pushing our luck. Not yet, sir. Not yet. Flucky's voice is iron. He knows the math. He knows the danger. But this moment, this audacious, impossible moment, requires commitment. You don't storm into the enemy's home, blow up their railroad, and then slink away quietly. You make them remember. 18 minutes. Barb continues north. The coastline slides past. Cliffs. 4 small fishing villages still dark and sleeping. Somewhere behind them, the fires from the shelling are dying down. 15 minutes. A light appears on the headland ahead. Then another. Searchlights. Lookouts report surface contacts. The call comes from the bridge watch. Multiple small craft. Bearing 040. Range 3,000 yards. Patrol boats. Flucky raises his binoculars. He can see them now. 3 small wooden vessels, maybe 50 feet long, moving south along the coast. Probably investigating the explosions. Probably wondering what the hell just happened. Steady as she goes. Flucky says. McNitt stares at him. Captain, they're going to see us. I'm counting on it. 12 minutes. The patrol boats are closer now. One of them changes course, angling toward Barb. Flucky can see figures moving on the deck. Someone raises binoculars. Then the patrol boat's searchlight snaps on. The beam cuts across the water, sweeping left and right, searching. It passes over Barb's conning tower, hesitates, then swings back. They've been spotted. Captain. McNitt's voice is urgent now. Flucky doesn't move. He stands in the searchlight's glare, binoculars still raised, watching the patrol boat. He can see the crew scrambling, see the deck gun swiveling toward Barb. Gun crew, Flucky says calmly, push shot across their bow. The deck gun roars. The shell screams over the patrol boat, missing by 50 yards, and detonates in the water beyond. A geyser white spray erupts into the air. The patrol boat stops dead. Its searchlight wavers. Then it cuts hard to starboard and runs. The other 2 boats follow, racing back toward shore like rabbits from a wolf. Flucky allows himself a thin smile. They're not getting paid enough for this. 8 minutes. Captain, respectfully, McNitt begins. I know, Bob. I know. Flucky checks his watch one more time. 7 minutes. Close enough. Dive the boat. Make your depth 150 feet. Come right to course 270. Relief washes over McNitt's face. Aye, Captain. Clear the bridge. Dive. Dive. The klaxon sounds. The deck gun crew drops through the hatch. Flucky is the last man down, pulling the hatch closed above him as seawater crashes over the deck. At Barb's nose tilts forward. The ballast tanks flood. The ocean swallows her whole. Down they go. 50 feet. 100 feet. 150. Level at 150, Captain. Very well. Rig for silent running. The submarine goes quiet. Engines throttled back to minimum. Every man still. Listening. Above them, the patrol boats are circling. Flucky can hear the faint throb of their propellers through the hull. They're searching, guessing, dropping small depth charges that boom in the distance but are nowhere close. Flucky checks his watch again. 3 minutes. 2. 1. Then, from somewhere astern and inland, a deep, rolling thunder. The demolition charges detonate, even through the water, through the hull, through 150 feet of ocean. The crew of Barb hears it, a low, rumbling crump that shakes the boat like a distant earthquake. Hatfield, standing in the control room, pumps his fist silently. The inland railway line is gone. Flucky closes his eyes for just a moment. When he opens them, his face is calm, satisfied, secure from silent running. All ahead standard, set courses straight. Barb turns west, slipping through the black water, leaving chaos in her wake. Above, on the surface, the Japanese are scrambling. Coastal defense units are mobilizing. Naval patrols are flooding the area. Radio messages are flying up the chain of command, each one more frantic than the last. American submarines surfaced and shelled railway, landed troops, destroyed infrastructure, escaped. It sounds impossible. It is impossible. And yet, 3 hours later, Barb is running deep and fast through the Strait of Tartary, 180 feet below the surface. The submarine is a blind predator feeling its way through a maze of steel and high explosives. The minefields here are dense, charted by guesswork and stolen Japanese documents that may or may not be accurate. One wrong turn, one miscalculation, and Barb becomes a tomb. Flucky stands behind the helmsman, eyes on the navigation plot. The chart is marked with penciled circles, suspected mine positions. There's so many circles they overlap like scales on a fish. Steady on 265, Flucky says quietly. Steady on 265, aye. The boat glides forward. Every man aboard is aware of the math. Magnetic mines hang suspended in the water column. Their cables anchored the seabed. Their triggers sensitive to the magnetic field of a passing hull. Contact mines drift just below the surface, horns extended, waiting for impact. Acoustic mines listen for the sound of propellers and detonate when the frequency matches that Barb's crew has learned to breathe quietly in mine-infested waters, as if silence might save them. McNitt leans over the chart table, measuring distances with a pair of dividers. If the chart's accurate, we should clear the densest field in 40 minutes. And if it's not accurate? McNitt doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. Flucky checks the fathometer. The bottom is rising. 70 fathoms. 60. They're entering shallower water, which means less room to maneuver. It also means they're approaching the choke point, the narrowest section of the strait, where Japanese patrols concentrate and the mines are thickest. Sonar contact. The sound operator's voice cuts through the control room. Bearing 090, multiple screws, high speed. Flucky's head snaps around. Classification? Small craft captain. Probably subchasers. Count 3, maybe 4. The Japanese are hunting. Of course they are. An American submarine just violated their home waters, shelled their coastline, and sent a landing party ashore like it was Iwo Jima. Every patrol boat, destroyer, and aircraft in the region is probably looking for Barb right now. Range! 4,000 yards and closing. Flucky's mind calculates. Barb is deep, running quiet, but she's not invisible. The subchasers have sonar. They have depth charges, and they're between Barb and open water. Come left to 240. Slow to 1/3. The submarine turns, her massive hull groaning softly as she changes course. The engines throttle back. Speed drops to 3 knots, barely faster than a man can walk. Sonar, give me bearings every 30 seconds. Aye, Captain. The minutes crawl. Flucky stands motionless, hands clasped behind his back. Around him, the control room crew works in silence. The plane's man keeps the boat level. The helmsman holds course. The trim manifold operator watches his gauges like a hawk. Bearing 085. Range 3,000 yards. The subchasers are getting closer. Still closing, Captain. McNitt murmurs. Flucky nods. He knows. The question is whether the subchasers know. Are they tracking Barb, or are they running a search pattern, hoping to get lucky? Bearing 080. Range 2,500 yards. Closer. Captain, they're pinging. The sound operator presses his headphones tighter. Active sonar. They're searching. The tension in the control room ratchets up another notch. Active sonar means the enemy is hunting blind, throwing sound waves into the water and listening for echoes. If they get a return from Barb's hull, they'll know exactly where she is. Flucky's jaw tightens. Reduce speed to 2 knots. Rig for depth charge. The order passes through the boat in whispers. Hatches are secured. Loose gear is stowed. Men brace themselves. And then they wait. The pinging grows louder. A metallic chirp that reverberates through the water, through the hull, into bones of every man aboard. Ping, ping, ping. The subchasers are right on top of them. Bearing 075. Range 1,800 yards. Flucky closes his eyes. He can see it in his mind. The subchasers moving in a line. Their sonar operators hunched over their equipment, listening. Barb is a ghost beneath them, a shadow in the deep. But shadows can be seen if the light is right. Ping, ping. A pause. Then the sound operator stiffens. Captain, they've got us. Strong return. There. The first depth charge detonates 100 yards astern. The explosion is a hammer blow. The entire submarine shudders. Light bulbs shatter. Dust rains from the overhead pipes. Men grab for handholds as the deck tilts. Damage report. McNitt shouts, checking all compartments. Another explosion. Closer this time. The hull groans like a living thing in pain. A gauge cracks. A valve starts leaking seawater. Just a trickle, but enough to send a chill through the control room. Depth charge pattern, Flucky says, his voice steady. They're guessing. They don't have an exact fix. Another explosion. Then another. The subchasers are dropping charges in a grid, trying to blanket the area. It's a brute force tactic, and it's terrifyingly effective. Boom, boom. The lights flicker. Go out. Emergency lighting kicks in, bathing the control room in red. Main power offline. The electrician's mate reports. Switching to battery. Barb is running on reserve power now. Silent, slow, vulnerable. Flucky doesn't flinch. Come right to 280. Take us into the thermal layer. The helmsman cranks the wheel. Barb turns, her bow swinging toward colder, deeper water where temperature gradients bend sonar waves and create blind spots. 2 more depth charges detonate, but they're farther away now. The subchasers are losing the scent. Bearing 060. Range 2,000 yards and opening. They're moving away. Flucky exhales slowly. Maintain course. Keep it quiet. For the next 20 minutes, Barb creeps through the strait like a wounded animal. The subchasers continue their search pattern, but they're hunting in the wrong place now. Barb has slipped through their fingers. Finally, the sonar operator speaks again. Contact's fading, Captain. Bearing 130, range 6,000 yards. Secure from depth charge. Bring main power back online. The lights flicker, then stabilize. The boat comes back to life. McNitt wipes sweat from his forehead. That was too damn close. Flucky doesn't disagree. But they're through. July 23rd, 1945. 1840 hours. Open Pacific, 300 miles east of the Kuril Islands. Barb surfaces into a golden evening. The hatch cracks open, and Flucky climbs into the conning tower. The air hits him like a baptism. Clean, salt-heavy, free. Behind him, the coast of Japan is a distant memory. Ahead, nothing but ocean, and the setting sun painting the horizon in shades of copper and blood. They made it out 0.5 days of cat and mouse through enemy waters. 5 days of depth charges, patrol boats, and minefields that could have ended them a dozen times over. But Barb is intact. Her crew is intact. And somewhere behind them, the Japanese are still trying to make sense of what happened. McNitt emerges from below, squinting in the light. Never thought I'd be this happy to see empty ocean. Flucky allows himself a rare smile. Makes 2 of us. Below deck, the crew is cycling through, small groups climbing topside to breathe real air, to see the sky, to remember they're still alive. They don't celebrate. Not yet. Submariners are superstitious that way. You don't celebrate until you're tied up at the pier with a case of beer in your hand. But the tension is broken. You can hear it in the voices, see it in the way men move, looser, lighter, almost giddy with relief. Hatfield stands on the deck near the 5-inch gun, running his hand along the barrel like it's a lucky charm. "We really did it," he says to no one in particular. "We really goddamn did it." A torpedo man named Paul Saunders grins at him. Wait till the skipper writes the patrol report. Nobody's going to believe this. He's right. Flucky has been keeping notes throughout the patrol. Detailed, precise, clinical. Coordinates. Tonnage sunk. Targets engaged. But even he knows this one is going to raise eyebrows back at Pearl Harbor. Submarine commanders are supposed to sink ships, not shell railroads and land commando parties. But war is changing. The rules are changing. And Flucky has never been one to follow a playbook when improvisation works better. He descends into the wardroom and pulls out the patrol log. The pages are filled with his tight, methodical handwriting. He flips to the most recent entry and begins writing point 18 July 1945. Surface off Patience Bay, Carafuto. Conducted bombardment of coastal railway with deck gun. 12 rounds expended. Direct hits confirmed on rail line, trestle, and storage facilities. Landing party of 8 volunteers deployed ashore via raft. Demolition charges placed on inland track section. Successful detonation observed. All personnel recovered. Withdrew under pursuit by coastal patrols. No casualties. He pauses, pen hovering over the page. How do you quantify audacity? How do you measure the psychological impact of making the enemy doubt their own defenses? He adds one more line. Mission accomplished. August 2nd, 1945. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Barb glides into port under a brilliant Pacific sky. The pier is crowded. Word is spread. Submariners from other boats line the dock, watching. Officers stand with arms crossed, curious. A Navy photographer is setting up his camera. As Barb ties up, Flucky emerges on the bridge. His crew files out behind him, sunburned, exhausted, but standing tall. Rear Admiral Charles Lockwood, Commander Submarine Force Pacific, is waiting on the pier. He's a hard man, a submariner, and he's read Flucky's patrol report 3 times because he didn't believe it the first 2. Flucky salutes as he steps onto the dock. "Admiral." Lockwood returns a salute, then shakes his head slowly. "Gene, I've been running submarines for 3 years, and I thought I'd seen everything. Sir, you surfaced in Japanese home waters, shelled a railroad, landed troops." Lockwood's voice is equal parts disbelief and admiration. "Do you have any idea how insane that sounds?" Flucky meets his gaze. "It works, sir." Lockwood stares at him for a moment. Then he laughs, a short, sharp bark of laughter that makes heads turn. "It worked. God help me, it worked." He claps Flucky on the shoulder. "Come on, you're buying the first round, and you're going to tell me every damn detail." The story spreads like wildfire. Not officially, not at first. The Navy classifies the patrol report operational security. They say, but submariners talk. Stories leak. And this story is too good not to tell that BY September. Every boat in the Pacific knows about Barb. The submarine that walked onto Japanese soil. The crew that blew up a train and lived to joke about IT in Tokyo. The reaction is different. Japanese naval intelligence reviews the incident reports from Carafuto. Coastal defense units describe an American submarine surfacing in broad daylight, shelling the coast and escaping under fire. The railway garrison reports sabotage, demolitions planted by unknown commandos who vanish without a trace. The reports are filed, analyzed, and then quietly buried. Because acknowledging what happened means acknowledging something far more terrifying. The Americans aren't just fighting offshore anymore. They're in the harbors, on the beaches, in the home islands themselves. And if a single submarine can do this, if one crew can penetrate the inner defenses, strike at will, and escape unscathed, what does that say about the Empire's ability to defend itself? It says the war is lost. Not officially. Not yet. But in the minds of those who read the reports, who see the pattern of raids and losses and relentless American pressure, The conclusion is inescapable. The tide has turned. And it's not coming back. August 15th, 1945. Japan surrenders. Barb is at sea when the news comes through. The radio operator bursts into the wardroom, eyes wide, message flimsy in his trembling hand. Captain, it's over. The Japanese surrendered. For a moment, no one speaks. Then the boat erupts. Men shout, laugh, embrace. Someone starts singing. The cook breaks out a hidden stash of whiskey. The control room becomes a celebration, a release of 4 years of fear and tension and loss. Flucky stands in the wardroom, holding the message, reading it over and over. It's over. He thinks about the men who didn't make it this far. The boats that went out and never came back. 52 submarines lost. More than 3,000 men gone. He thinks about the missions, the patrols, the impossible gambles that somehow paid off. And he thinks about that night off Karafuto, when Barb surfaced in the heart of enemy territory and announced to the world, "We are here. We are not afraid. And you cannot stop us." That was the moment. That was the war in microcosm. Not just survival. Not just victory. Defiance. October 1945. Washington, D.C. The White House. Lieutenant Commander Eugene Flucky stands at attention in a room filled with admirals, generals, and politicians. His dress whites are crisp, his shoes polished to a mirror shine, but his hands are steady and his eyes are clear. President Harry S. Truman steps forward, holding a small blue box. Inside is the Medal of Honor. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, Truman reads, his Missouri accent clipping the words with Midwestern precision. As commanding officer of the USS Barb during her 12th war patrol, Lieutenant Commander Flucky demonstrated exceptional courage and tactical brilliance in enemy-controlled waters. The citation goes on. It mentions the railway bombardment, the landing party, the escape through minefields and depth charge attacks. It mentions tonnage sunk, 17 ships totaling more than 96,000 tons across multiple patrols. But what it doesn't fully capture, what no citation can capture, is the audacity of it all. Flucky receives a medal with quiet dignity. He salutes, shakes the president's hand, poses for photographs. But later, when the ceremony is over and the crowd is dispersed, he finds himself alone in a corridor with Admiral Lockwood. You know what they're calling you back at Pearl? Lockwood says, lighting a cigarette, "I'm almost afraid to ask." Lucky Flucky. Lockwood exhales smoke. Some of the boys think you've got a guardian angel. Others think you're just crazy enough that death doesn't know what to do with you. Flucky considers this. "What do you think, sir?" Lockwood looks at him for a long moment. "I think you understood something most commanders don't. This war wasn't won by playing it safe. It was won by men who looked at the impossible and said, 'Watch me.'" He claps Flucky on the shoulder. "Your crew, every one of them volunteered for that landing party, didn't they?" "They did." "You know why?" Flucky shakes his head. "Because you made them believe they couldn't fail. That's leadership, Gene. That's what wins wars." The years pass. Barb is decommissioned in 1954. Her war record unmatched. She's eventually sold for scrap in 1972. Cut apart in a breaker's yard, her steel recycled into bridges and buildings and things that will never know what they once were. But her legend doesn't die. In submarine wardrooms across the fleet, her story is told and retold. The boat that surfaced in Tokyo Bay, the crew that landed on Japanese soil, the mission that redefined what a submarine could do. It becomes a parable, a benchmark, a reminder that the rules of warfare are written by those bold enough to break them. Eugene Flucky retires as a rear admiral in 1972. He lives quietly, rarely speaks of the war, and deflects praise with the easy grace of a man who has nothing left to prove. But when submarine officers visit him, young lieutenants with questions, old chiefs with memories, he tells them the same thing. "We didn't do it because we were fearless. We did it because the mission required it, and because 84 men trusted each other enough to try." He pauses, his eyes distant, seeing something beyond the present moment. Fear is always there. The question is what you do with it. Do you let it paralyze you? Or do you harness it channel it, and use it to sharpen your focus. He smiles then, a rare and genuine thing. We chose the latter, and we lived. July 18th, 2025. 80 years to the date in a small maritime museum in Groton, Connecticut. A display case holds artifacts from USS Barb, a ship's bell, a patrol flag, a faded photograph of the crew, young men in dungarees squinting into Pacific sunlight. The plaque tells a story. The railway bombardment, the landing party, the escape. Visitors read it and shake their heads in disbelief. Some laugh, some take photographs. A few, veterans mostly, stand in silence, understand what the words don't say. That war is chaos given form. That survival is equal parts skill and luck. And that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. In the photograph, Eugene Fluckey stands in the center of his crew. He's not smiling. None of them are. But there's something in their eyes, a shared knowledge, a quiet pride that transcends decades. They were there. They did the impossible. And they came home. The museum closes at 6. The lights dim. The artifacts rest in their cases. But the story doesn't sleep. Because stories like this, stories of audacity and defiance and men who refuse to accept the word impossible, these stories live forever. They live in the telling, in the retelling, in the moment when someone hears it for the first time and thinks, could I have done that? Would I have had the courage? And maybe, just maybe, the answer is yes, because that's what legends do. They don't just commemorate the past. They challenge the future. They whisper across the years. You are capable of more than you know. The impossible is only impossible until someone proves otherwise. USS Barb proved it on a dark night in July 1945, when she surfaced in enemy waters, announced her presence to the world, and dared the impossible to stop her. IT couldn't. And 80 years later, her story still echoes a reminder, a challenge, a promise. That courage, audacity, and the will to act can change the course of history. Point one submarine, one crew, one impossible mission, and a legend that will never die,